what was it? Minding your mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
How to stay healthy throughout this pandemic, throughout this crisis. We had some outstanding guests that joined us, subject matter experts in the field, and it was outstanding. We've been viewed over 1,000 times every week. As many as 2,000 people have tuned in to hear the content, which we are so appreciative of. Whoops, I'm hitting my microphone. So at any rate, I just wanted to remind everyone to please like us on our Facebook page. Go to our Instagram pages, which is at Soul Purpose Show, both Facebook and Instagram, and give us your comments as well, and like us and give us a comment so we can continue to get feedback on on the kind of topics that you want to hear. So I thought that we would at least share, because we did hear from some folks. A lot of folks don't really know what our background is and how, we're a couple, but we don't know how we got together and what our history is. And I'm not going to take too much time, but essentially we met back in 2003 at a professional work conference, because I was in HR and Monica's a labor and employment lawyer. So we met, became friends. I kind of tried to hit on her. We were both married.
I was married. Kind of. You did hit on
hit on her. So and so then years, we were made friends, and then years later, you got married, and then divorced, and then I got divorced, and then you accompanied me to a company function.
Yes.
You escorted me to a company function, and then you discovered that you couldn't live without me after that date, if you will.
Yes. That's the story.
And she pursued me for weeks and months after that, until such time as I said, you know what, maybe the Lord is trying to tell me something. And that's how we
so that's his version of the story. That is not completely accurate. Everything is accurate up to the point where you say I pursued you, because that's technically not true. So the truth is, I thought he was a bugaboo. I thought he was super cute, but he was a bugaboo. And I told my friends.
What does that mean? Oh, whatever.
Right. So then what happened was my father died, and I said I kicked you to the curb, which is probably pretty accurate. And then we were out with some friends, and I saw him talking to another young lady, and I told my sister, I don't really like the fact that he's talking to somebody else. So
Mark, that was a pimp move. That's what that is.
So I said, okay, well, he's cute. I like him. We vibe. I really don't want him talking to anybody else. So let me go ahead and shoot my shot. So I don't remember what happened after that, but I remember when we started dating, Keith had just gotten divorced, and I'd been divorced for probably a year. And I remember telling him, the Lord told me that you're going to be my husband. And his response was...
Also a pimp move, by the way.
What his response was, the Lord didn't tell me that. And then he walked off. So my feelings were hurt. My ego was shot. But you came to your senses and you asked me to marry you. And our anniversary is on Monday.
Our anniversary is this weekend, y'all. This is our anniversary weekend. So we thought it would be appropriate to have this particular session this day talking about relationships. What exactly are we talking about,
Cheating. Cheating.
And why are we talking about cheating?
We're talking about cheating. Well, so the backdrop is, 7 years, everybody has heard of this 7-year itch. And I think there's actually a movie that Marilyn Monroe is in. I've never seen it. But the premise of the movie and the thought behind 7-year itch is that when you hit that 7-year mark, that folks start to get uncomfortable, that whole 80-20, you figure that you're the 20% that you may be missing in your relationship is somewhere else out there, the grass is greener. And so there's this whole thought that at 7 years, you start to, the love between the couple has waned and the honeymoon phase is over and you're looking for something different.
Right.
Coupled with a couple of days, maybe last week or so, Mother's Day weekend, Snoop Dogg's wife posted on Instagram. It was actually pretty funny, but not so funny at the same time. Her Instagram post was, "Don't ask me, I took the M back 81 times." And so I was like, does that mean that he cheated on her 81 times and she took him back 81 times? And I was like, yeah, that's probably not me. I'm probably not going to take you back after 81 times of cheating. But no shade, that's a relationship. It is what it is. But 7-year itch, the whole cheating. I said, well, we should have a conversation about marriage boundaries and infidelity, and invite some other people into the conversation who've been married longer than us. I mean, this is marriage number 2 for both of us, and I think we both agreed that we're not doing this again. So if this don't work out, then we just be single for the rest of our lives. But we thought that we would invite some couples to have a conversation about marriage boundaries, infidelity, have a real conversation with folks, two couples that we really love and admire.
And who might that be?
So we have Mark and LaQuinda Brewington. Say hi, Mark and LaQuinda. Can you hear us?
Yes.
We got you.
Hello.
Hi. And then we have Javante and Talitha Anuabuele.
Hello.
Hi. So Mark and LaQuinda have been married 25 years.
Yes.
And then Javante and Talitha, y'all been married for 11.
Yes.
So, and again, clearly we don't get marriage right because this is number 2. So y'all have been married to the same people for longer than we've been married. So we figure we bring y'all in and ask y'all questions on how you all kind of just have a real conversation about marriage, Black marriage specifically, because the foundation of the Black community really is rooted in ensuring that this thing works, right? So we want to have a real honest conversation with two couples that we really love and admire. So.
And we're gonna pull back the veil today, folks, with couples who are relatively newer and who've been together a long time, and folks who are a little bit younger than us as well. So this is our opportunity to, if you have questions, if you have comments, by all means, we're on Facebook Live right now. So go ahead and chime in with your comments. Mark and LaQuinda, let's jump right into it. Y'all soulmates? Or y'all just like each other a whole lot? Is soulmates a thing? Is that real?
No. It's just not. I mean, it's just like one of those concepts that we hear and we think, oh, I'm going to map myself to be this thing. And I don't think either one of us believe that. I mean, when we met, if we were soulmates, the first time that we met, we would have stayed together, right? We met in college. I think it's fair to say that
we were in different places.
We were in different places. I ain't like him. I did.
I'm just like us, because we were together. I think when we met.
So we just we met, and then we kind of said, yeah, no. So we split, and years later, we ended up in the same town. I didn't even know that he was living in Tampa. That's how much I didn't want to get to know him, that I didn't ask no questions. I was like, whatever. And so years later, I got my first job in Tampa. And as it turns out, I was going the long way to get to work. And I just so happened to stop at a random gas station to get gas, and I saw him. And so every time that we say, and that had been like a span of several years by that point. And so anytime we have some sort of dust up disagreement, we always say, you know what? That was God putting us together that day. So we need to work it out. Whatever we're going through, whatever we have is ordained by him. Mm-hmm. And for us to turn our back on that would be an affront to God. That's what we feel. That's what we. So that's kind of the perspective that we look at it from.
That's fantastic.
Talitha and Javante, soulmates. Do y'all believe in the whole soulmate concept?
Yes. I mean, our spirits met probably before we were even in agreement with the connection, and spirit really decided that we were supposed to be together. Like our story, we have similar storytelling abilities when we tell the story of how we met and how we got together. It definitely is a path where it diverges.
where the truth happens. From
truth to revisionist history. And this is what happened. But honestly, I think we both can agree that the day that we really, really met, because we knew each other before we started really hanging out, but the day that we really connected, it was all spiritually divine. I was in another relationship. He was out there taking advantage of the ratio at FAMU of 9 to 1.
Yes, sir.
And you know, like we were not looking. That was not anything we were looking for. And we spent the entire day together. And in that day, words came out of my mouth before I was prepared to even say them, before I even realized what they were. And I literally just blurted out, "We're going to get married." And I couldn't catch them before I could get it out. I didn't intend on saying it. It wasn't a thought before I said it. They literally just blurted it out of my mouth.
Right.
And stood there and received them. Unlike Mr. Keith, he was like, okay.
just stay there.
That's what it was.
The way to say it. Well, I didn't run away.
He did. He was just like,
I was like, all right, but
you know,
I don't
and
want
we
to say
just spent the
receive
rest
it.
of the day. Like, we didn't talk about it. We didn't. And like I said, let me tell you, I was in a relationship with the man I thought I was supposed to marry, because he was on the verge of being an NFL player. I was about to get that money. My life was set. You know, it was going to be straight. I was ready. He was doing his thing. We were not trying to be together, but our souls really did decide for us. Like, that's why I said we accidentally fell in love. Like, our souls decided we're supposed to be together. So I truly believe we are soulmates.
But I will say that I don't think it's a precursor to marriage. And I don't think our marriage or success in marriage or longevity in marriage has anything to do with the fact that we are soulmates.
Yeah.
And I have heard, I don't know, I mean, it ain't true for me, but, you know, you can have more than one soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely marriage and soulmate, like that thing.
They're not the same thing.
And it's not a prereq for sure.
So question, I'm follow with that, because that kind of leads into another question. Do you think that you have to be friends, right? So one of the things that my grandfather told all of his grandchildren is, when you get married, it's fine to be in love with the person. That's important, that you are in love with the person. But at the foundation of your relationship, you have to be friends. And so for me, I love this man, but at the end of the day, we are friends. So in the back of the mind, anytime I do something or make any type of decision, I really try to think about, how is this going to impact Keith, my friend, because I value our friendship. Not that I value our marriage, because I do, but I truly value our friendship. And I think that's probably indicative of how I my people who know me know I'll ride for this one. I don't play about him. But do you think friendship has to be at the core of your marriages, or of a marriage period?
I think so. I mean, if you're not friends, how do you kind of sustain yourself, right? So friendships can be seasonal, right? So you have friends that are in season, and sometimes they fall out of season, and then you have a much smaller circle of friends that kind of ride with you, the whole way through all of your seasons and all your ups and downs, right? But I think you just, from a relationship perspective, you have to be friends, right? Is this the first person you think of when, you got tried in the grocery store by somebody, right? Is that the first person you think, man, let me tell you what happened, right? So, yes, right? And as you go through things, we've got grown kids now, but when you get to careers and, let's say, even secondary school and kids, the window of opportunity for you all to be in deep love and like with each other is greatly reduced. So you better be friends, right? Because, the marriage thing at points in times turns into a business.
Mm.
Marriage is a business.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fundamental problems with Black folks, is our approach to marriages are oftentimes not looked at as true partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at any other partnerships, especially from standpoint of a business, I mean, you would never go into it with people that you weren't friends with, or is doomed to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the foundation of it, yes, friendship is important, but marriage should be a tool that's utilized to build legacy. And so when you're doing that, it's definitely business.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I want to go back to the whole kind of soulmate and the spiritual connection question for a moment, because I want to get some perspective from the guys. One of the things I think it makes it tough, Javante, is we go into this marriage because men, we see our initial attraction to women is usually going to be physical, right? Like, if she's cute, she's fine, she got that little thing about her that makes us laugh or whatever it is. And so we want more of that. So when we get married, I think a lot of times for us is we're not approaching it from a business standpoint, because, we still kind of, we just think she's hot, or we just think she's cute, and maybe she's going to be like that. So over time, when we figure out when life happens and everything else, then the business relationship starts to get clouded by the fact that, you're not my girlfriend anymore. You're not that cute chick I used to pick up and we just go and just walk along the beach. Like, that's not what you are anymore. And so I think it starts to wear on us. Talk about the kind of the physical aspects of how men process this whole soulmate question.
Well, I don't. Let me start from this standpoint. When you were talking, I thought immediately to one of my mentors said to me two simple words that really resonated with me in a very profound way when it was on the subject of not even marriage, but just relationships in general. He simply said, beauty fades.
Mm.
So if you're going to be with somebody for 40 years, you always going to be into them like that? And I know for me, it was definitely going to be, hold on one second. If y'all don't turn that off, turn that off. We told you to be quiet. Go back to your rooms.
Life happens.
Yeah.
Life and them little badass kids happen every time.
You cannot.
So anyway, so yeah, so
go in your room.
So that resonated with me as like a 19, 20-year-old from the jump. Now, you see my wife, she's drop dead gorgeous, has always been this way, but one of the things that people laugh at when I often say is I did not marry her for her looks. And people think it's funny because they look at her and they're like, ha ha, I absolutely have been blessed, lucky with a beautiful wife. But our attraction, I knew her for 4 years before I ever tried to step in that way. And it was because we connected on so many other levels that I was interested in that. And, not for nothing, where I was at the time in college with all these beautiful Black women, it was like a dime a dozen. It was a lot easier, was expected less, wanted less. So if it, I was chasing tail. Did you say this is community radio or not?
No, this is not community radio.
Did I say
you
I was chasing ass, so it was a lot more. It was like so. But when it came to the idea of, to get back to your question, when it came to the idea of marriage, looks were never at the top of my list. And if I ever heard a brother talk about, yeah, man, but she gotta look this way, I'm like, bro, you ain't gonna do well with the marriage, because no matter how good she look, there's gonna be a lot of times where you gonna think she ugly anyway because of how she's acted or so. That's beauty does fade. So.
Whew. Well, I'm sure Mark is quiet because his wife has the same beautiful disposition all the time.
No, I can agree, right? So not so much. I didn't take it from the perspective of beauty phase, but I'm going to use that going forward. But it's about the whole soulmate thing. Your spirits do have to agree, right? So whether that defines what soulmate means, I don't know. But your spirits have to agree that so that you guys can kind of row the boat in the same direction, as opposed to you think this and I think that. Well, over time that's not going to last.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But one way, eventually resentment is going to build up. Somebody's going to get sick of it and just jump out of the dog on boat. Those are just facts, right? So the friendships and the whole notion of soulmates, right? All of that is, I believe, interconnected, but they don't stand alone, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So I have a question. I know for the women, for Talith and LaQuinda, I know sometimes as women we have this laundry list of our ideals about what we want in a mate, right? And so sometimes those lists are really long, particularly when you're younger, and then as you grow, you realize that some of those things just aren't that important. And so for me, I had a non-negotiable list, right? So my non-negotiable list was, I needed you to be a Christian. That's just me. I need you to have a relationship with God, because I'm looking at kind of what my dad was in terms of a covering for our house. And I fundamentally believe that my husband needs to be a covering. I also wanted someone who was going to be a good life partner, who I could be friends with. And then thirdly, someone who was going to be a really good father, right? So those things were non-negotiable for me. One of the things that I had on my non-negotiable list was you can't have any kids before we get married. Right. This was marriage number 2 for me. And when I got with Keith, Keith had 3 daughters. And so I'm coming into a situation where I am being now a bonus mom to 3 girls. who were teenagers. I think all of them were teenagers at the time. Teenagers or preteens at the time. And because I didn't have the benefit of developing relationships prior to us getting together and getting married, that was a really rocky road to try to navigate. And it was tough for the first couple of years. But in terms of non-negotiables, I try to tell my friends, we have these lists as women of things that we want in a mate, and then reality sets in, and we have to kind of reconfigure what our goals, what our wants and needs are in a marriage. And so when you're talking to other young women, talking to your daughters, or talking to young women who are younger, who are single, and they see your relationship and they're asking you, kind of what were the things that made you attracted to him, or what were the things that you were saw in him that said, yes, I can. If he asked me, I can say yes and be a life partner to him. What were some of those things, Talitha?
For me, so when I first started writing my list, I was 16. I always knew I wanted to get married. Okay. I grew up in a 2-parent household, saw marriage. My grandparents were married for 60 plus years. Aunts and uncles had all been married. So marriage was just like, you know how you graduate, you go from high school, you go to college, you get married. Like it was like the next step. So like at 16, I remember, like I probably still have a list somewhere I started writing, and it was like maybe 100 things on this list. Now, of course, each year it just got shorter and shorter and shorter. And I went to school, and a lot of people, frown upon this or look at me strangely when I say this. But when I went to FAMU, I knew I was going to get my degree. I knew I was going to pledge AKA, and I knew I was going to find my husband. Like I with those 3 things, freshman year, day one, I knew those things. Now that's very unusual. That's not always the case. We usually hear this because many white women go with that standpoint. Black girls are not taught that. You go and it's all about get your degree and you don't need a man. Nope. I wanted to build with a partner. I was very clear about that. Not that I needed a man to be on my own or be self-sufficient, but I wanted to build with a partner. And so I was clear the best place to find that is at this mecca of Black excellence. I was on a mission for that. So I don't make any apologies about that. And I tell girls, if that's something you want for your life, that's an optimal time to do it. But I also say, like, now is having someone that allows you and actually pushes you to be your best self, and that you do the same for them. And that's really it. That's it on my list now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Help me be my best self. Do I help him do the same? As long as the answer is yes to that every day, we're good. And that's really all you need. And so for you, that meant that he needed to be a Christian, and he needs to, so that will differ for every person. But am I thriving? Am I being my best self mentally, spiritually, physically? 40 years from now, when we still feel good, look good, love ourselves and each other, that's what it's about. So that's really the one thing on the list. Do we help each other become our best selves?
That's great.
Whenever we talk about this, I always find it interesting that, women have their lists. And this is something I tell my daughter is it's fine to have a list, but you split it in half. When you're talking about what you want from him, you talk about what are you prepared to give to him. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I never hear is women say, well, I want this and I want this and he got to do this and he got to do that. What you got to do, sis? Mm-hmm. I mean, but I'm always like so shocked when people don't take their life mate into consideration when they're making all of their lists. And I tell my daughter all the time, this is something, when you enter into any sort of relationship with anyone, whether it be a friend, whether it be a husband, those are things that you have to consider. What are you prepared to give yourself? It's not a one-sided thing. That person, he is not there. I never thought that he was there to make me happy. Right. If that was the case, then we probably would not have made it for 25 years because every day is not happy. And he'll tell you the same thing. But we work at it because we take each other into consideration. I think it goes back to what Monica said in the beginning was, you really have to look at your partner and say, as a friend, how would that make you feel? And I think that's kind of the lens that I've always looked at it from. And plus, I have 3 brothers. So I think I've had that unique opportunity to kind of look at it from a male perspective. And that's kind of the lens that I always look at it in. And I've always thought that was really interesting that, I hear a lot of women say what they want, but they never follow it up by saying what they're prepared to give. So.
Wow. So one of the, and this is great dialogue, guys. I mean, I think that if our listeners are out there really kind of taking copious notes, I think that there's some real nuggets of wisdom in what we're hearing. And I know that we got a few minutes before break, but I know everybody who's tuning in probably saw the kind of the lead up to this, and we are going to get into cheating. We are absolutely going to get into cheating. We come out of the break, we're going to hit it hard, and we're going to hit it heavy. But I do want to, in the next few minutes, explore this whole 7-year itch thing, because all of us have now been together for 7 years. Now, this is our 7th year. This is our 7th anniversary. And you guys have already kind of seen whenever that bubble happened. So I want you to talk, both of you, both couples want to talk about that bubble a little bit. Like, when did something happen? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Now, what that challenges a relationship, or is that a real thing? Does that actually happen in all marriages, or does it just happen in some marriages? What's the deal with the 7-year itch?
So just sitting here trying
to
figure
out where we were living when 7 years.
We just moved back from overseas, so it's definitely trying to.
Yeah, that was rough. Oh, so, okay. Yeah. So we're a very transient family. We move a lot. So a lot of our demarcations in our marriage are about where we've moved or where we've lived, and so we were trying to do the math of where we were. So we had just transitioned back to the States. So we had just repatriated back to the States. And I remember that year was the first year, and I'm actually writing about this. That was the first year I personally considered divorce. Second time. First time was in that first year of marriage, Lord. That's chapter 1, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But that 7th year, and it had nothing to do with an itch of desiring anyone else. It was just a very hard transition back. We were both at different points professionally. We had 2 young children. We didn't have a support system. We were not helping each other become our best selves. The answer to those 2 questions was not yes. And so it was definitely a very trying time for us. So I don't know if it had anything to do with the timing of 7 years, or it just happened to coincide with the fact that all of those things came culminating at one time.
Mark, do we get to a place where we get in the marriage and we feel like and take us up to the break, where we feel like, like this is it. Like, I got to really kind of rethink whether or not I'm doing the right thing. Does that happen for us?
It didn't happen for me. I can say that, right? I've never kind of felt that way. In fact, I planned a trip to the mountains and a renewal of vows at 5 years.
Wow.
So
romantic.
Nice.
So, it was just something that, I just wanted to do and just kind of reiterate it. So it really was more reinforcing to me, right? I don't think I've ever had a point in our relationship where I kind of felt like, wow, what did I really get myself into? Nothing like that, right? It really was more like, how do I do this better?
Yeah, that's good.
Right? Because, we get into our own things. There was a period of time where I was, having a kind of a tough time at work, and I kept bringing it home a lot, right? And so, that didn't necessarily stress our marriage, but I realized that, all the conversation was about what happened to me at work today. Mm-hmm. And not much, it didn't give her much breathing room to talk about what happened to her, right? And so I was like, okay, I got to, that's really got to stop, right? Because this is one of these things, and, of course, I prayed and meditated about it, and God removed that situation without even a blink, right? So, you don't realize it when you're going through it, but
right.
When I look back on the 25 years, it was really a blip. But no, I can't recall a moment in time ever that we've had that moment. Right now, we had a pretty long engagement, and in that engagement, we talked about everything.
Everything.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we talked about what are your views on kids? What are your views on money?
Well, no, that takes us to the break. I tell you what, that is perfect, because when we come back, we are going to test those boundaries. We're going to talk about checking phones and what if you have lunch with an ex-boyfriend, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about it when we come back from the break.
Touch Radio, the most loved station across the nation. In Touch Radio. Tell a friend. In Touch Radio. In Touch News Radio. In Touch Radio is smooth soul.
Rocking your radio, the sounds of soul.
Playing your favorite R&B. In Touch Radio.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all gotta see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all gotta see it.
Wherever we go, we about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we are gonna do what makes us feel right.
All right, so we're back from break. We are here with Mark and LaQuinda Brewington and Javante and Talitha Angwelli, and we are having a conversation about marriage boundaries and infidelity. In the first half, we really talked and dug deep about kind of what make these two marriages work and kind of how they vibed and been able to sustain past the 7-year itch. And I know my mama may be watching. Mommy, we're not getting a divorce. There is no 7-year itch. We are good. Because
the anniversary's not till Monday.
Right.
Right?
Be quiet. Hush.
2 more days.
Whatever. So, but one of the things that we did say, because this is marriage number 2 for us, for both of us, one of the things that we did say when we made the decision to get married, went through premarital counseling, and one of the things that we said going in was that divorce is not an option for us, right? So, and so I don't know if we talked specifically about boundaries, but because we went in saying that that I don't care how mad you make me, absent you hitting me, this is us. We're gonna have to figure this thing out. And so that kind of leads into the question about boundaries and whether or not in this marriage, in a marriage or in a relationship or in a marriage, do you set boundaries, right? When we get married and you exchange those vows, better, worse, sickness, health, rich or poor, good, bad. And I think a lot of times we focus on the positive part, but we don't always focus on that second half of those vows. And so are boundaries okay in a relationship?
Have you set boundaries? Should
there be boundaries in a marriage? And have you set boundaries? Mm-hmm. So whoever wants to take that one first.
I guess my thing is I don't know what boundaries means. I've always said, do whatever you want to do. Just don't embarrass me. Mm-hmm. And we are of the mindset that, going back to what was said earlier about looks and all this other stuff. I mean, anybody who says, oh, yes, I married him because of his mind. Well, you're a liar, because that's the first thing that you see is how someone looks, right? I knew in my mind, I think my only thing on my list was that my husband had to be over 6 feet. I'm not dealing with people who are, I'm sorry.
Dealing with people? You can't even deal with people?
Hey, I feel the same way.
You can't even deal with people.
It's just a thing. I'm Maybe that's your next thing.
Apologize. We gotta apologize.
Over under 6 feet. But anyway, my thing is do whatever you're gonna do, because I feel like when boundaries are set, that's when people start feeling some type of way. I mean, think about how our boundaries have been set for us these last 3 months. Don't go outside, be safe, and people started losing their minds, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that when you set those types of boundaries on people, they start losing their minds and they start wanting to do the things that you're telling them not to do.
They can't do.
So Javante, I'm just make sure I hear what I'm saying. Javante, it's cool if it checks your phone. Like she has your password and all that, so she answers your phone when it rings.
You got my passwords. But I think
I have I don't care.
Yeah.
Like we both have we know all each other's everything. I don't care. If I have to even think about checking his phone or anything like that, we already done. Like it's not even I just have no interest in that.
Yeah, PJ Morton wrote a song about that. I love the song. He said, "I'm not trying to check your phone." He's talking about that whole mindset of if we hear, and I think in there his vamp is like ignorance is bliss or whatever, and it's to the point of, she knows who I am. I'm gonna say some stuff that is not gonna be something that she would approve of
all the time.
All the time. If it got down to the micromanaging of what is happening on that level, then it's just not going to work. That point about the boundaries, we do have some boundaries, but one of the things, and this didn't happen, like day one for us. It wasn't something I think we went into, but definitely we evolved in a way of saying, you know what, they're specifically around the idea of cheating. There's so many other things that could be more damaging, horrible to our marriage. Does it mean we'd be happy with it? Nah, but is it something that's like, okay, this is over now? Because when you're talking about marriage and those ebbs and flows and just overall now, she knows if I came to her and was like, look, I got something from somewhere else. Okay, that's one thing. But if I was like, I've been having this deep, meaningful relationship with this, she knows how my mind works, right? So if I didn't have sex with the woman, but I was already like, oh, we always spending all this time talking to each other, that's way worse for her. Because she knows how I am, like, what I mean? And so, there are, we do set boundaries like around money, like how we spend money, when we need to talk to each other about a dollar threshold, we need to spend money about.
Which, with them last Jordans.
2 separate purchases.
Yeah, and follow him.
Two separate purchases.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Talitha, I'm with you because we got a big old TV that I knew nothing about. So he brought it into a huge television, huge, that I knew nothing about until he brought it into the house. I was like, but why? Why? What is this for?
Why? When we first got married, my deal breakers were abuse, physical or emotional, infidelity, or a complete deception. Like you just aren't who you presented yourself to be at all. And now it's just 2 out of the 3. It is just the abuse and the deception. Mm-hmm. And because of what we've built, because of who we are now, because of, and I write about this in the book that hopefully I can finish this year, that love is not the reason to get married. It is the reason we got married, but that was a mistake. That is not the reason to get married. That's like icing on the cake. It's nice. It makes it easier. It makes it flow a little better. But that is historically just not the reason to get married. And one of those reasons is legacy. As long as you ain't messing up the church's money and our legacy and what we are building here, and like LaQuinta said, embarrassing me out here in these streets, like we can work on anything else. If this was just a fly-by-night, you just had to get some strange one night, okay, we can work through that or whatever. Because I might need some strange. You know what I'm saying? Like it. But these are things that infidelity is not a deal breaker for us at this point in our marriage. I think both of us are both more secure in the marriage and as individuals. I am not the insecure 20-something-year-old that he met all those years ago. Like I'm very affirmed in who I am.
That's really interesting because there were when we got together, I had platonic women, relationships with women, and she was like, dead all that, cut all them out. And I'm like, what? They been here before you, they might be here after you. I ain't getting rid of them.
They might be the alpha, but I'm the omega.
So, but it really is about, the maturity. Now, at that time I was like, no. But now if she was like, look, this friend no more, then I'd be like, say no more, it's done. But that's because of what we have established, right? So
what did you just say?
I said that at that time the answer was no to getting rid of those friends. Mm-hmm. But if you said that now, given what we have established,
which is interesting because now I wouldn't care. Like it's now it's the reverse. Yeah. Some people are asking, like, are the men as understanding if the woman cheats as it sounds like?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. So my boundaries around this are like, look, not in my house. Use a rubber, and as long as he don't come up in my face, because that's gonna ruin everything. Because I'll whoop a nigga ass. So I'm sorry. So but if she came to me and was like, this happened. In fact, it was we weren't married, but I was living overseas myself. And she's emailing me. This is before cell phones, readily available, all of this stuff. And she's emailing me, trying to get in touch with me. And I'm like on vacation in Barcelona. I think it was Barcelona. But she called, I got to speak to you immediately. She called, and, I'm calling from a phone cafe, like where you had to go get on the phone in a foreign country, like the spy movies, right? So she's like, I'm like, what's wrong with you? I'm thinking something that happened, and she's like, I kissed somebody. I'm like, what?
I'm devastated.
You called me because you kissed me. I'm here now. You done ruined my vacation. Now I'm asking all these other questions, and you done kissing. This could have waited.
I needed to purge this. Oh my God! But I cheated on him. That way, and I felt a way about that because
interesting.
At that time, that was a deal breaker for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to let him know.
Yeah. So and again, so there are boundaries around it. I wouldn't go as far as say it's a license to do it. Although I've been asking her for a license, but she I don't believe that. So what I'm saying. But we do agree on it. What I do believe in our heart of hearts is that if something did go down, it would not be the end of all that we have done. Let no man tear us up.
LaQuinde Mark.
Us, it's always been like really cool, right? Because I think it's fair to say that I have gotten my fair share of attention from other men. And still, hey, whatever, people like what they like. But I remember specifically, we went on vacation in Jamaica, and there was some guy, I was clearly with my husband.
Delroy. Yeah.
He was like really pushing up on me. And so one of the other guys in the group that we were traveling with said, hey, do you see this guy trying to like mess with your wife? And he was like, I think I would be mad if nobody tried to mess with my wife. He was like, I'm proud of her. And if other people find her attractive, then that's cool. But she coming home with me. And that's always been his philosophy. I mean, even my daughter, we were out and some guy rode up to me and he said some stuff about, oh, you're this, you're that. She came home and told on me. And I didn't even do anything. I was just walking, going into the store. And, oh, Daddy, this guy came up to Mommy and he was telling her how attractive. And he was like, okay, but where is she? She ended up at home. And so that's always been his philosophy. And I feel the same way. I mean, we have trust and respect for each other. I'm never going to do anything to embarrass him. And I think he feels the same way.
Oh,
Go ahead, Mark.
The whole notion of the cheating thing is, I do understand, and I agree with what was previously said. I think people do have moments of indiscretion where they step out. Some do, right? I've never had them, thank God. And then, what I've tried to do, and it's something that I think Quinn said to me like early on, right? How would the other person feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the back of your head all the time. It's like, how do you come home and explain that?
Mm-hmm.
That I went over here and I was the tiptoe burglar for one night, but I came home and I'm good and there was nothing to it. How do you, how would that make that person feel? How would you take that, right? How would you process it, right? You can't, you can say, I wouldn't care. And I agree, right? Would it be enough to break us up? No. Would it give me pause? Yeah, it would, right? Because, this is kind of our exclusive thing, right? And so, in some way that's been marred, right? And so what happened? What did we do? What did I do? What happened to bring you to the point of feeling like you needed to get something from someone else, right? So I think a lot of times when we hear some of the narrative, you hear very little about what you did or didn't do to kind of drive someone to step. Right?
Well,
you never hear that.
What's so interesting is Keith and I differ. I'm like you, Talitha, with respect to the phone. I think he had my password. I have no desire to check his phone. If he picked up my phone and checked it, there's nothing in there. So I don't care one way or the other whether you check. And the other part is, to me, Keith knows I'm crazy. And so I'm that one that'll go up to the office and really create a scene, embarrass us both, because I just don't care that much. Because at the end of the day, to me, it's a trust issue. I inherently trust him. So if you're going to go out and do something, particularly in Tampa, number one, you stupid, because everybody knows who we are. And if someone sees you out, then it's going to be a problem. But what he does to his credit is, if he's going out with, this was never a conversation that we've had. If he's going out to lunch or something with a woman, it's just him and her, he will text me and say, babe, I'm going to lunch with XYZ. And I was like, okay, it's whatever. And because of the trust that we have with each other, if anybody came to me and said, "Ooh, girl, Keith did such and such," I know you're being messy and you're lying, because our relationship is such that he's going to tell me, and vice versa. It's funny that you said, LaQuinta, the story that you told about someone admiring you in Jamaica. It must be Jamaica, because we were in Jamaica.
It's Jamaica.
we were in Jamaica. This was after we got married.
It was our honeymoon.
So our honeymoon, we're in Jamaica, and we went to Dunn's River Falls, and we had worked out for like three months before. So I was fine, right? So I was fine. So we were walking to Dunn's River Falls, and one of the tour guides, when we first get on the boat, he said, "Oh, they don't make chocolate like that no more." And so Keith was like, okay.
74 times. I got it. 74 times. When he got to the 74th time, it was almost gonna be a problem.
Sorry, but Keith was like, he said, "I'm irritated, I'm aggravated, because I get it. The first 10 times, I appreciate it. Good luck. I know it's whatever. But now at 71, now you're just being disrespectful. Now you're just being kind of disrespectful."
Yeah. You're trying me now, bro.
Right, now you're
right. So I have go ahead, Javante.
Yeah. I mean, there have been times when I see somebody peep her, I be like, "She fine, ain't she?"
He eggs them on.
But there are those times too where it's like, okay, she is not being disrespectful. Somebody else is being disrespectful to me. Because when I said the fourth time, there's been comments on Facebook where I'm like, actually, that I'm about to check him, just so you know that I'm only giving her the warning because she's the one who's gonna flip out. Because I would have checked him a long time ago, but I'm like, all right, he done did it too much. He just said something too much, and I'm not that type, so I'm gonna say something this time, But so yeah, that's.
But both of us are also big flirts.
Yeah.
And we will be in a room and enjoy watching each other flirt, knowing that we are flirting across the room and that we're going to be the ones that end up together, and just hurting feelings at the end of the night. That's just, we enjoy that banter, and he enjoys the role play of him coming up acting like he doesn't know me, taking me from somebody else. We get into all that.
Just sick. That's so evil. Well, I gotta tell y'all, this has been excellent food, really, for relationships. Now, in all sincerity, I gotta tell you, I think that God is probably still working on me to deal with the notion of stepping out of the marriage, and I tell you why. To Monica's credit, like I've kind of made a determination that this time is going to be different for me. This is our second go around, and I also know that because we did have a question about how do you reestablish trust, after infidelity, and I think I know myself very, very, very well. I'm just struggling with if she does it. I've already determined that this is till death do us part. So I don't want to get a divorce. But how do I ever recover? How do I ever get to a place where I start wondering, is this because she just fundamentally doesn't care about me, or is it because she just had a lapse in judgment, or she's not happy, or is whatever? Like I'm still struggling with how do I get back to a place of trust after that happens. I'd love to hear from you guys on, and maybe not from a personal standpoint, but Snoop's wife said 81 times. So it probably wasn't 81 times, but y'all know Snoop probably, he's Snoop. So how does
it was probably 81 times.
Oh, it could have been 81 times. But how does that happen though? How do you get back to a place of normalcy after somebody has stepped out of your relationship?
It was never normal. I think she knew prior to that happening that he was that type of person. And I think to a large degree, we know who we're getting into something with, right? I mean, there are people who are psychopaths and you're just never going to know what is on their heart. But I think if you are in tune with someone, like you say you're in tune with them, you kind of know.
Mm-hmm. Your vibe is different.
You know who this person is, and they show you things in their spirit. They drop little hints. Now, if you refuse to listen, then that's on you and you get what you get. But, I'm a big believer in you already know.
Those weren't 81 anomalous times, right? That's a pattern. That's called an open marriage.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. For us, like that, there's an African proverb that goes, you don't look where you fell, you look where you slipped.
Yeah.
So for us, cheating is defined a little differently. It's not him having sex with someone else or me having sex with someone else. It is you doing that with deception, because we communicate about everything. So if you're even thinking, but before you don't just fall on it, you don't just fall on something.
Right.
Censor. Right. So there was something before that. So let's look at that. Let's look at the root of that. If that's just not who you are. Now there are some people like Snoop, and there are many. Snoop is not an anomaly. There are some people who are just not wired to be monogamous.
So let me just interject. So I don't think humans are wired to be monogamous. So any holy scripture you look at,
that's right.
Nobody's in there talking about that. That's so even if it was like, if we're all Christian, Pauline doctrine was that when he said the end days, he did not think it was going to be another 2,000 years.
No,
he thought it was going to be like 2 weeks.
Right.
So Paul's instruction of like, okay, don't have sex, and if you're married, try not to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
How crazy is that, right? He said, but if you have to, at least be married when you have. That was Paul's.
Yeah.
So even then, and then any religion, they talk about like, okay, here are the rules to monogamy. Number one, that's number one. Calvin Broder's been famous since he was 19.
Right.
Famous, right? And Chris Rock was absolutely right. You only as faithful as your options, because if Rihanna, Ashanti, it's happening. You know what I'm saying?
Roger Hunter walks in this store now. I'm this podcast off.
Keith has a list. What's it, Candace Parker?
Candace Parker
is number one on that list.
Yeah.
You got, who else you got?
CeCe Winans.
CeCe Winans, which is right. Thank you, Talisa.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. There's a list of people that I know. There's a list of people that I know that if they walk in and he says, "Oh,
it's gonna be a problem,"
it's gonna be a
So the reason that I bring that up though is because commitment and partnership and a commitment to another person, group, that is very human. So am I violating my commitment and how I said I would honor our marriage and honor my wife? And that, to me, that's when we're talking about, okay, things have gone awry. Mm-hmm. Things have really gone awry in that sense. So if it is, for me, that's how I look at it. Like, if it's something where it was a jump off, it was this type of thing, I want to be very clear, I would not be happy about it. However, and I've told her, as a matter of fact, she hasn't shared a view that I have, but I really don't want to care to know if it hasn't damaged anything.
We differ there. Someone
everything is straight.
He wouldn't want to know. I would want to know. I don't want to ever be in a room where someone knows more about my husband than I do. So I would want to know everything. That also it almost empowers me to know that I know everything. Like nobody got anything over on me. Mm-hmm. He would want to not know. He would want to be completely ignorant, and it would be messy if he does find out. So.
And I wonder if that has a lot to do with just the way men and women view infidelity or view cheating. Because I'm like you, Talitha. For me, it's an empowerment thing. I don't want to be the only person in the room not knowing. Whereas I don't know if men process that the same. And I don't know because I'm obviously not a man. I don't know if men process that that infidelity differently particularly when it comes to your wife, because this is your queen. This is who you committed to. Should nobody else be engaging with my queen? Whereas women, I think the whole stand by your man type mentality, I can stand by you a little bit better if I'm more aware of kind of what you've done. And I don't know if that's.
So listen, folks, this has been like we're going for a whole nother hour easily because we have a lot of other areas that we could explore, but we're getting our timeout signal. I got to tell you, in terms of nuggets of wisdom, for anyone who is out there watching these two dynamic couples share personal insights on what makes a marriage works, on infidelity, and on and on and on. These are real, honest to goodness things that you can kind of keep with you. And I don't think they're both the same. I think they're coming at things from different angles, and there's not one prescription that making marriage work. But more than anything else, relationships that are ordained take work. But even if God ordains them, it still takes work and it takes an understanding. So this has been great, guys. I mean, we can't thank you guys enough.
So are you all, we have Food for the Soul at 12:30. Are you all able to join us so we can continue the conversation at 12:30?
You gotta go get bucked.
Okay.
I have 12:30 to 1. I got 12:30 to 1.
Okay. Well, you can join.
Start right now?
Huh?
You gonna start right now?
No, we start at 12:30.
We can start at 12:30.
We go Facebook Live. We may start at 12:25. Who knows?
We'll start 10 minutes early for you, Devontae. Just cause.
Because I told you this is what I really wanted. I showed up for this second part. And I want to talk to you about some things.
We hope everybody tunes in. It's at Soul Purpose Show. Next week, we're going to wrap up the time. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Thank you, our guests. We had a great time, and God bless everybody.
All right, see y'all next week.